I want to share some thoughts with you about Kina Chaf Gimel 23 before we have a chance to recite it this morning on Tisha B'Av. I find this Kina always to be particularly emotional. It's a Kina that talks about the children of Rabbi Yishmael, a boy and a girl, siblings, who were taken as captives independently, and their captors, having looked at their physical attraction and beauty, felt that if the two slaves that they had, who they did not know were brother and sister, were somehow to be joined, they would produce beautiful children that would be very valuable on the slave market. So the Kina tells us how these two cruel and savage slave owners put the boy and the girl, brother and sister, unbeknownst to them, in a dark room at night, and expected that during the night they would somehow conceive a child. The two of them sat in the opposite sides of the room, bemoaning the sad fate that befell them. And when the dawn and the light broke, they realized that they were actually brother and sister. They cried together, and their souls departed, and they died. It's a difficult Kina to read, but it's not a Kina that seems to remind me of the past. It's a Kina that asks me this question, and it's a hard question. If you knew that somewhere in the future there would be your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, even descendants whom you never met, but you were to find out that some great sadness or tragedy was going to befall them, but you could do something today to stop it, would you? What would you be willing to do to prevent suffering from befalling your children? The suffering of our ancestors in Tisha B'Av is horrific. It's indescribable. The savagery, the brutality, the death, the suffering that the Kinot and Megillat Eicha describe are overwhelmingly sad. And there's nothing I can do. It's part of our history. The only thing we can do is read about it, imagine what it must have been like for everyone there. Grandparents, parents, and as Kina Chaf Gimel tells us, children. But what if we were to consider what we could do today that might prevent our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren from having to go through any of this? Is there something we could do? Imagine if our actions today would change the course of history, and some great tragedy would be averted because of something we've undertaken. If we were to change not the history in the past, but the untold history that's yet to unfold. Maybe that's one of the messages of Tisha B'Av. It's not so much about only lamenting what we can't change. It's thinking about rewriting the narrative so none of the things described in this Kinot will ever happen again. It's up to us. We can do it. We just have to want it badly enough.